Hello everyone, I am Casey the Gamer, and it's time for another game review. Guess what? Dracula is back, and it's up to us to defeat him once again in Castlevania Bloodlines. Castlevania Bloodlines was once again developed by Konami and released in March 1994 in North America, Japan, and Europe, just a few days apart from each other, for the Sega Genesis. I had never played this game before playing it for the review. We didn't have a Genesis growing up, so there's a lot of great games I haven't played, even from using emulators, but we'll get there one day. First impressions though? Bloodlines is a really good and solid Castlevania game. So, let's take a closer look at it. There are spoilers ahead for the story of the game. In 1917, a countess named Elizabeth Bartley wanted to revive the spirit of the vampire Dracula. In order to do this, she had to travel all over Europe, enlisting help from all the powers of darkness. It is up to two young vampire hunters to put a stop to Elizabeth and Dracula. There is John Morris, who wields the vampire killer whip and is distantly related to the Belmonts. And joining him in the fight is Eric Lecarde, who wields the Alucard spear. The two hunters journey all over in an attempt to stop Elizabeth and Dracula. Along the way, they battle a variety of crazy bosses like a hellhound, a knight, a golem, a gargoyle, Frankenstein's monster, the gear steamer, a giant armored boss, the Princess of Moss, Death, Elizabeth Bartley, and finally, Dracula himself. Dracula does not go down without a fight. He has three forms in this game. The first form is the standard Dracula and is a pretty easy fight overall. Dracula's second form uses some magic spells as a means to attack, but like Form 1, isn't too bad at all. Dracula's final form is that of a giant monster and puts up the biggest challenge. After an intense battle, our heroes succeed in defeating Dracula. Dracula's castle crumbles once again. Each character has their own ending. If you beat the game on normal mode, you get the same text for both characters. It says the resurrection of Dracula has been averted. But if you beat the game on extreme mode, you get another scene for each character and another line of text. John Morris kills some bats as they approach him, and the text says, "However, the blood of the vampire hunter still courses through his veins." For Eric Lecarde, it shows him walking away from his spear, and the text says, "Thus Eric has fulfilled his destiny as a vampire hunter. Now he must venture forth into greater unknowns." Bloodlines is super hard, even on normal. I don't know if I'll ever get through it on extreme mode myself, but maybe I'll give it a try one day and see. Either way, it's a very simple story, but there's nothing wrong with that. The gameplay in Castlevania Bloodlines is the Castlevania gameplay that we know and love up to this point. Some more good old-fashioned Castlevania action where you strut, jump, and whip your way through the stages while dealing with crazy enemies and obstacles. And it still feels really good in Bloodlines. Bloodlines features two playable characters, John Morris and Eric Lecarde. John Morris wields the vampire killer and plays like the Belmonts have in the past. Eric Lecarde wields the Alucard spear, which provides him with more range than John. In addition to that, Eric is slightly faster, but the spear doesn't do quite as much damage as the whip. The two vampire hunters are pretty similar when it comes to movement, but each one does have something that is unique to them. John is able to swing across gaps with his whip, and Eric gets some kind of really cool super jump. In Bloodlines, you once again can't attack in all directions like you could in Super Castlevania 4, but John is able to attack diagonally up while jumping, which is the same way you'd go about swinging across gaps with him. And Eric is able to attack straight up and diagonally up. Overall, they're both really fun characters to play as. Bloodlines once again features sub-weapons. However, there are only 3 sub-weapons available in this game. They include the axe and the holy water from previous games. It also includes the Crystal Blade Boomerang, which is a really cool weapon and probably my favorite of the bunch. It was apparently featured in Haunted Castle, which is a Castlevania arcade game that I'll have to check out one day. With the sub-weapons, you're able to do the regular attack, and then a kind of super version of it that requires more ammo and shoots out more projectiles. Both John and Eric feature an ultimate move as well that involves upgrading your weapon and sub-weapon all the way. And I never managed to pull it off. When your weapon is fully upgraded, it changes how its attacks look, and it does more damage. But if you get hit once, you lose it. And I got hit a lot. In addition to the sub-weapons, there are a fair amount of items that you can find in the game. They include red and blue jewels, which take the place of hearts for weapon ammo. There's money bags for points, wall meat to heal you, 1-ups, the Mirror of Truth, which is a screen nuke just like the Rosary was in previous games. There's the Coat of Arms, which will upgrade your whip or your spear. The Orb makes you invincible for a brief time. And the Spellbook item can act as a third coat of arms to fully upgrade your weapons, or it gives you 20 jewels. Castlevania Bloodlines features 6 brutal stages. They can really be quite a doozy in this game. Bloodlines is definitely one of the hardest of the bunch. It's a weird one though too, because it can be very unforgiving in some ways, but forgiving in others. First of all, you only get 2 continues before you game over completely. When you use a continue, it brings you back to the start of the current substage that you were on, which is really nice. If you game over completely, you have to put in a password to bring you back to the stage that you were on, but at the very beginning, which can be very rough because the stages can be pretty long. It is forgiving in another way, which I will get to in just a bit. Over the course of the adventure, you will battle classic Castlevania enemies, as well as tons of crazy bosses like a Hellhound, a Knight, a Golem, a Gargoyle, Frankenstein's Monster, the Gear Steamer, Death, Elizabeth Bartley, and Dracula. You have to fight Death, Elizabeth, and Dracula all on the same stage. The other forgiving part that I mentioned comes into play while you're fighting Death. Before you even fight him, he summons these various cards, and you have to hit one of them with your weapon. 2 of them make Death attack you, 3 of them have you fight weaker versions of previous bosses, and 1 of them heals you. Choose your order wisely. The forgiving part is if you die to Death at any point, any of the cards you have already attacked and completed will be gone, meaning you don't have to do them again. Once all of them have been taken care of, you have to battle Death properly. Thankfully, he is relatively easy in this game. With Death out of the way, you have to fight Elizabeth Bartley, and she has 2 forms. One form looks like Medusa and is pretty easy. In her second form, she summons a certain amount of orbs, and you have to attack her quickly to destroy the orbs before they can activate, so you can even damage her. But keep it up, and she eventually goes down. And last up is Dracula, who has 3 phases. Did I mention that this game was rough? Dracula's first form is like a classic Dracula fight, and it isn't too bad. The second form uses magic to attack you, but it's all easily avoided, and this form is easy to defeat as well. His final form, on the other hand, is a bit of a tank and has several high damaging moves. Really, just do your best to avoid them and keep hammering away with your weapons, and Dracula will be defeated. With Dracula dealt with once again, you have beaten the game. Despite its difficulty, I do really enjoy this game. I definitely had to make use of the password system several times, but I did find a lot of the stages and bosses to be really fun. I wasn't the biggest fan of the big boss gauntlet at the end though, but it is what it is. Castlevania Bloodlines features some amazing graphics. The Genesis really has some great looking games. The characters and enemies look so good in this game, and the backgrounds are amazing. I really love Dracula's design in this game as well, especially his first and final forms. The sound effects fit the game perfectly. They sound like how you would expect Castlevania to sound on the Genesis. It's got that specific Genesis sound, which isn't a bad thing at all. And the soundtrack also has that really specific Sega Genesis sound. The soundtrack features some new tracks which are all great, as well as some of the old classics like Bloody Tears, Vampire Killer, and Simon's Theme. They all sound great. And that was Castlevania Bloodlines. It's a really good Castlevania game, and I am glad that I finally played through it. Despite its difficulty, I do think it's a really good time, and I can see why it would be a favorite. If you've loved the previous Castlevania entries, I definitely recommend checking this one out. When I dive into the series again, I'm taking on Castlevania Dracula X for the Super Nintendo. Thank you all so much for watching. I greatly appreciate it. Go ahead and like, comment, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And if you want to see more of me, you can catch me streaming all kinds of stuff over on my Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/CaseyTheGamer91. And I also have a Patreon where you can get perks like early video access and some other pretty cool stuff. And that is patreon.com/CaseyTheGamer91. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I hope to catch you next time. Peace out.